So I guess a super short pre-show. As I was gathering notes for today, one of them is regarding like checking out who you used to follow on Twitter and all that. So
Yeah.
of course I go ahead and download my follower list, and it says here's a link to open it in Mastodon. Uh, so I like click that and I get a page that says import. So I go and get the downloaded file and I import it. Um, and then all of a sudden I start seeing a whole bunch of notifications. But so and so is following code completion. I'm like, uh-oh. It turns out the settings screen does not tell you at all which account you're logged into. And I was logged into code completion. So everyone I was following on Twitter, code completion account is now following back uh, on Mastodon. Um, which is what we were doing on Twitter for the code completion account,
Yeah.
anyways. So it's not like the end of the world, but it was like super weird. So like, hi people that were following.
Sorry, but also thank you.
We welcome you to listen to our podcast. Um, so just wanted to get that out of the way.
That's great. That's a classic happy little accident right there.
Yeah, let's put some happy little trees over here.
Mm.
Hello and welcome once again to episode 138 of Code Completion. We're a group of iOS developers and educators hoping to share what we love most about development, Apple technology, and completing your code. My name is Dimitri and I'll be your host once again for this episode, and I'm joined today by my fellow completionist, Spencer.
Hey there.
So we usually start off with what's new in the Swift Evolution pipeline, but everything is still kind of up in the air with Swift Evolution at the moment. All the proposals are actively being discussed. If you had any hopes for observability, making it to older versions of the OSs, those hopes and dreams should be quenched now, because it doesn't seem like it's going to be worth the investment like it was worth for Swift concurrency,
Sure.
as I was told directly when I said as such on the forum. So uh, don't be me, and listen to what people say before they have to reply again, and everything should be good. So in lieu of Swift Evolution updates, I have an open source project update of my own to share, and that is I've bumped the version for Bytes, which is a Swift package, to 0.3. So it is no longer in 0.2. It's got some brand new features, namely because I was using Bytes a lot recently with Codable Data Store. And it needed some fine tuning, so I put a whole bunch of work into that, and I like switched around 3 lines on Codable Data Store afterwards to use the new
Nice.
stuff. So I like gained nothing out of all these improvements, which was a lot of copy pasting and updating documentation. So it wasn't a huge amount of effort, but yeah, Bytes is, for those who don't know, it is a library that allows you to read a stream of bytes in Swift. By stream of bytes, this can come in a few different kind of flavors. It can just be an array of uint8s, which is what a byte is, or it can be a sequence of uint8s, whether that's a regular synchronous sequence or an asynchronous sequence. And once you have an iterator from one of those sequences, you can go ahead and ask for the next big endian uint16. Or you can go ahead and ask for the next 17 bytes as a string, or like so on and so forth. It supports raw values, it supports UIDs, it supports strings, it supports your family of integers. And it is generally useful if you ever want to work with binary data in a way that's not going to make you feel like you have type checks all over the place, because this can go ahead and just give you a single one line to try await the next X bytes, and you get that if it matches, and you can do something with it, like use it as a value to read the next X bytes, and so on and so forth. So it's great for those typical setups where you need to like work with a stream of bytes. So that's what I wrote it for, and yeah, I hope it can be useful for others.
Nice. Yeah, I'm planning on converting some of my own Vapor code to use it, so I'm excited to try it out. I haven't had an opportunity to, but I think it'll work great for what I need.
Well, over here on Code Completion Hosts, you get premium support. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
if anyone has any issues with Bytes, like feel free to jump over to the GitHub and poke around the discussions area. I've never used it, the discussions on GitHub, so it'll be a good excuse for that. But yeah. In other open source related news, Swift Package Index now supports visionOS. So this is something that they basically added overnight, just like they added to 5.9 support overnight. So it's great to see it there. And the aforementioned Bytes already supports visionOS because
Hey.
why wouldn't it? But Codable Data Store, which I'm currently working on, did not support visionOS. So this is that time of year where you get the public, the friendly PSA about don't conform types to protocols you didn't write, and this is why. So in my case, I am using UUIDs as a reasonable default for what people might use as identifiers in Codable Data Store. However, UUIDs do not conform to Codable. So I went ahead, and since it's kind of integral to how my thing works, I added conformance to Codable for UUIDs based on the code that Apple ships or is planning to ship with the new Foundation framework. So I basically copy pasted that code into Codable Data Store and linked to it, and that provides backwards compatibility. However, since visionOS does not have a pre 1.0, it's just this is visionOS.
Mm-hmm.
It has support for marking UUIDs as comparable. And one problem with that is now there are two implementations for the less than operator,
Right.
mine and Apple's, which turns out they match. But the compiler is not so keen on just picking one or the other. So in my case, the fix for that was twofold. The first was to mark mine as a disfavored overload, so that way I can go ahead and use the system one if available. So that was part of it. I'm not totally convinced that that works, and we talked about it on a previous episode. But the more I think about it, the more like unsure I am that that's like an actual solution to this, because I'm pretty sure disfavored overload impacts the compile that like at compile time which method signature you're actually pointing to. It does not necessarily just go ahead and have like a replaceable thing that can happen at link time at runtime. So I'm not sure that's just going to work, but if it does not, then I will go ahead and fix it. But if it does, I'm going to leave it as is. And the second thing I needed to do was duplicate the code with some classic if defs with regard to checking if either we are less than 5.9 or we are not on visionOS to add the comparable flag, not flag, the conformance to UUID. Otherwise, just putting the comparable conformance does cause a warning to show up, and I have you treat warnings as errors, so that fails on my CI. So that is fun, but that was also something that I could fix with some digging. So once again, as best as you can, try not to conform types that you don't own to protocols you didn't write, and you will live a happy programmer life. And if you don't, then you're gonna stub your toe when a new platform comes out like visionOS that can freely deprecate all the things that were classically deprecated, but also
Mm-hmm.
make all the things that were if at available just available, which is kind of annoying because Linux doesn't support a lot of those new
Yeah.
foundation stuff. It's still in the old world, so one day we'll get there. But yeah, it's something that doesn't work as seamless as I would have hoped.
So what I'm hearing is now you have a reason to buy the headset so you can make sure that it works with Codable Data Store with that overload, right? I mean, you got to test
Yeah.
it.
I
You
have to
have to.
test it. Well, I expect the headset to work. I don't know if older versions of like Mac OS, and I guess I could
Oh,
test that as well, like, right? Like
yeah,
if I just build
yeah,
it locally on my Mac, I'm not running Sonoma or anything.
yeah.
So if that works, then I guess I'm good. So yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier, but yeah, ostensibly that is something also I could test. And this is when I reveal I don't always run the test locally when I push the CDAC, and I just kind of
No.
assume if it's compiling that everything is good.
Fair.
So I should probably rerun those tests.
I
Thanks for the reminder.
got you, man.
Um, yeah. In solemn news,
Yeah.
Apollo is finally saying goodbye and shutting down for good. Um, and yeah, it's been a good, interesting month of updates regarding this.
Yeah, super, super bummer. On Mastodon, Christian has a post talking about there's one last Apollo update, and you can go on the app if you have uh, a subscription with any remaining time. You can sort of like decline or opt out of that refund, so he doesn't have to pay that because I think he said it's something. Yeah, devs pay refunds out of pocket, and this will be about $250,000. So don't leave him with that. I tried to do it. Unfortunately, my app crashes as soon as I open it, even after updating. So I'm gonna hopefully maybe delete it and try again. But uh, yeah, that's a huge bummer. Don't leave him with that huge bill just because you know Reddit is terrible. So yeah, and he made a eulogy on Reddit itself as well, and just the support as through comments and everything is really cool, and just saying like f spez and everything, it's it's pretty bad, just you know yeah, it's bad, so super
Yeah.
bummer.
Something cool that he is doing though is a lot of the artists that made the icon designs for Apollo. They helped out by making a bunch of phone, tablet, and desktop wallpapers. And you can actually donate to Christian's cause of not going belly up under bankruptcy. And if you do donate some additional money, if you can, then you will get these wallpapers, which is really, really cool. So
Yep.
if that's within your means, then please consider it. Regardless if it's not in your means, but you were a subscriber to Apollo, do go through the process of saying that you don't need a refund, because by law you need to say that you don't
Yeah.
want that refund. It's not just going to automatically happen. And if you are if you do want the refund, then I guess do nothing. But I would strongly encourage to do the alternative instead.
Yeah, it's not much money for you, but it definitely adds up for him.
Yeah. And as a side note to all this, the Reddit official app was recently plagued with 1-star reviews as a result of
Oh
uh,
no.
their infinite wisdom
Actions.
of making
Yes.
these decisions. Yeah, I say, like, if we are forced to download an app that we don't really want to use, might as well give it a proper rating. Um, and it kind of hurts me to say that because as a former indie developer myself, those 1-star reviews really, really hurt.
Yeah, but
But I don't know any indie developer that has ever deserved uh, this as much as Reddit deserves it for the actions that their leader has done. So, yeah,
yeah, I wouldn't classify Reddit as an indie app developer either. So it's like not going to, you know, bankrupt them or anything. I think it's a good way to communicate. So I I went on and as soon as I saw this, I went on and gave it a 1-star rating too. So
yeah.
yeah, they
Just a,
deserve it.
just a reminder in the App Store. You don't need to type anything. You don't need to say
Yep.
anything. You can just tap 1 star and say send, and that's often good enough to get those reviews going down, which is unfortunate if you are an indie developer,
Yes.
but fortunate in this case if you want to send a very strongly worded message to, I guess, a bunch of people that don't really care about
Yeah,
what you have to say. So
it's
at the very
something.
least, yeah, it's a little something. A little something that is quite surprising is that in iOS 17, the Photos app can interpret laundry symbols, which is like,
So
where did this come from,
yeah,
and how did we not have it this whole time? That's all I have to say.
I mean, it's just like hieroglyphics basically on your shirts. So super cool that this that Federico found this first of all, but like yeah, it looks really good and that's a great addition. Super cool.
Yeah, and it knows exactly what it's dealing with, and it gives you like, here's more information if you really want it, and that's kind of amazing. So A+ to that.
Yeah, definitely. Dimitri mentioned this in our pre-show, but there is the Fedifinder is back now, which is fantastic. So you like authorize your Twitter account, and it'll pull everyone you're following and see if they are also on any Mastodon server, and then you can go ahead and follow them as well. So I think it got shut down. I don't know if this is from the original developer, but I think the original one got shut down on Twitter because they were trying to stop the mass exodus. So it's cool that this is back and you can go onto a not terrible platform with
Yeah.
all your friends.
I'm quite surprised it's back. I imagine it
Hmm.
won't be back for long, so take
Yeah.
advantage of it while it's available. Um, and the reason why I say I can't imagine it to be available for long is because, like, I think if, within the past week, I don't have an exact date. Um, Twitter just decided to annul every single API key that they had, including like
So fun.
Apple's for like messages and stuff like that. So just
Great.
everything Twitter just became not richly enabled links anywhere else, which is wonderful. So good job, Twitter.
Yay.
You're doing excellent. You have a friend now, Reddit. They will be with you this whole ride. And
Oh.
I hate to think that we've somehow ended up with a very large platforms that are probably like wonderful nesting grounds for Nazis in some way. But this is the direction that they're clearly going in. So
Yeah.
wonderful. Um, that's all I can say. Something that is actually wonderful is that you can combine SF symbols in the SF symbols app, and I'm like, wait, what? Uh, this is amazing.
Yeah. So this is brand new to. It was, I think, announced in Dub this year of 2023. So they've got some normal symbol, and then you can put some component like a circle behind it to kind of make a background for the symbol or whatever. So I've not messed around with this, but I would assume that you can kind of combine whatever. I'm sure you could get some weird looks, um, but yeah, have some symbol with some component, put them together. It looks really tasteful. So the symbol is like a pretty deep purple, and then this component the circle background is like a lavender, and it just looks like very clean. So that's something going to be that's really cool to mess around with. I
Yeah,
quite enjoy SF symbols. Just I remember the days of going on like Icons 8 or the Noun Project or something and downloading them and being like, oh, if you want to use this for anything commercial, you got to pay for it, and it's like a whole thing. So SF symbols are great.
hmm I think Steve Tron Smith questioned questioned why we don't have this for sounds as well, because in visionOS there's a
Mm,
lot of sound effects that play when you're doing a whole bunch of different things, and it would be very awesome to have a library like this that's just part of the OS, that you can
yeah.
then go ahead and use. So that would be something that would be pretty good to have. So looking forward to something like that in the future as well. I think for haptics, there's like a very minimal library of available
Mm,
haptics that you can kind of make use of. And NS Sound used to exist, which had a library, at least on the Mac, that you can make use of. But it would be good for it to have a little glow up, like with SS symbols,
mhm.
for that.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be cool.
In terms of developer tooling, there's two little tidbits that I've come across while going through my timeline. One, Guy Rambo reports that you can, in fact, enable Stage Manager in the simulator. You just have to run a terminal command. So if you want to play around with Stage Manager, with your app, you should go ahead and run that so that way you can get a better idea of how it's going to behave in all sorts of different scenarios, especially now that it's been improved. And the second one is that you can get the old logging in Xcode 15 with another command, and that will go ahead. It's not really a command; it's an environment variable. Yeah, but that can enable an older app to still have useful logs in this new OS logger world. So +1 to that.
Yeah. Looks like the App Store Connect app has passkeys now, so you can. There's a sign in with iPhone button. That's pretty cool. Although, what happens when you want to sign in with iPhone on your iPhone?
Yeah, so this requires new OS updates for this to all be possible. But it is something that you can go ahead and do now. You can have a complete passwordless setup, which I would only recommend if you have copious amounts of backup devices to re-log in with. Because otherwise, like, there goes your key along with everything else. So something to consider if you do want to ditch your very, very, very long Apple ID that Apple once made you change on a monthly basis for whatever reason because you were a developer, and now ended up being atrociously long, but you haven't yet memorized because you had to type it in once a month for many, many months. I'm not salty.
No,
So
I can tell you're not.
this is a good thing to have in the distant future once all devices can get updated that would need to access your Apple ID. And yeah, good to see it.
Yeah. Next up, we have a couple rumors, and I just want to read this headline. It says, second gen Apple Watch Ultra coming this fall. New big iMac in early development with larger than 30-inch screen. My dumb brain at the end of the workday just like fused those two things together, and I read second gen Apple Watch Ultra coming with a 30-inch screen. I was like, cool, that sounds very impractical. So yeah, no, two things: Apple Watch Ultra second gen and a new iMac. So yeah, that'll be cool. I don't really know why the Apple Watch Ultra needs a glow up unless they're making it out of like meteorite this year or something. That'd be cool. I'd buy that. But they're kind of talking about like the iMac Pro it was only there for one generation. It was 27 inches, so they may have like a new iMac Pro type of thing with like an M3 Pro or Ultra or something. So that'd be cool. I think a lot of people quite enjoy the iMac. I don't because I have my stupid monitor, but I think it's good for a lot of people. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, I am not looking forward to Apple forgetting that colors exist once the Pro model comes out.
Yeah, that too.
Because it seems like they have forgotten. I don't know if the iMacs were a flop or something, but like there were so many chances for those colors to go to other devices, which they just didn't. So that's really unfortunate. It seems like a lot of people at Apple really like them, considering that they are all over WWDC sessions.
Yeah.
They are all over storefronts and Apple stores. Like they like the fact that they're colorful.
Yeah.
Just something about it is not propagating, which is kind of unfortunate. Maybe it's just really hard to mass manufacture stuff like that. I don't think so. I don't believe that. But yeah,
man, I would just immediately buy like an M3 Mac Mini in blue or something. Like that would be so good, dude.
Imagine the amount of people you would nerd snipe into buying all 7 colors of Mac Minis.
Yeah.
Like, it is such a thing that they don't need 7 Mac Minis or whatever, or 6 Mac Minis, but they will buy 6
They
Mac
have
Minis
all the colors
if you suddenly have all the colors. So
yeah.
just think about it, Apple. Is putting that little nugget there. And not that I would do it, but I I'm sure a lot of people will,
Yeah,
for no sensible reason. I can imagine the folks at Mac Stadium. No one sees them other than them, so they're gonna happily buy all the colors
that'd
and
be
just like
so cool.
organize them on
A
their shelves.
rainbow of yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
So
I know you would buy one too if it came in orange. I know that would be
I
like
would get the
a
orange one.
heartbeat decision. Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily need a new Mac Mini at that point in time, but if there was an orange one that was not gold, because gold sucks. Uh, does this look gold? No, it does not look
Nope.
gold. It looks white and it's disappointing. But
But
whatever.
you bought the orange iMac.
I did buy the orange iMac.
So
So
just saying,
just
there's
saying,
precedent.
Apple. This week's episode of Code Completion is once again brought to you by Super Easy Timer. Super Easy Timer is a quick and easy to use timer app for your Mac. It's complete text based, so you can type in English what you want, 20 minutes or 5 p.m., hit enter, and instantly start a timer. The timer understands English text to create, update, and start a new timer. You can quickly change an active countdown even while it's still counting down. There are simple keyboard shortcuts to reset or pause, no menus, no sliders, just use English to control your timer. We want to thank Super Easy Timer for sponsoring our show. Search for Super Easy Timer on the Mac App Store today to give it a try. So, Spencer, I've got a tip for you.
All right.
And this has to do with serializing strings, at which point I'm sure you have probably written string.data using
Yep.
.utf8. That's kind of what is super ingrained in us to type, mostly because it came from the Objective-C like way of thinking about how to convert strings to data. But that gives you an optional, which is great if you're like trying to convert it to ASCII. Not so great if you want UTF-8 because every Unicode string can be represented in UTF-8. And I put every with an asterisk because if you have an NS string, then maybe it's not a UTF-8 string. Anyways, putting that aside because we don't deal with NS strings no more.
Yeah.
There is a better way. And this is a pattern that Swift itself uses quite a lot, but I hardly ever see in any Swift app that people are writing. And that is to cast one type to another. So if you want to cast a string to data, our Objective-C minds are syncing, okay, you have a string, you say dot data to get the data version of it. The Swift mindset of this, which has not propagated nearly as well, is to just say data, the type, open parentheses, and put your string, and that will convert the string to data. Now, you
Right.
can't do that, but you can do a data, open parentheses, string.utf8, which is not optional. It's just going to give you a
Uh-huh.
UTF-8 view of the string, and data takes a sequence as an initializer, which UTF-8 is. And that sequence is a U into 8 bytes, which can then be read as data. So
Right.
if you need to convert strings to data, just use the initializer on data. If you need to convert data to strings, well, you guessed it, there's a string initializer that takes data, and it will go ahead and give you that data directly
Right.
if you go ahead and say string decoding as, and then you just pass UTF-8 as the marker here, and it will go ahead and decode that data as UTF-8. So uh, I used these methods in Bytes, and I completely forgot about this until I saw Rob Napier here post about it on Mastodon. So that's when I was reminded that these are indeed a thing that I don't use nearly as often as I should, and therefore I am sharing with everyone. Please use these methods instead of the old crusty Objective-C flavors.
That's cool. I didn't even know that string just had a .utf8 property on it. So that's cool. That's very
Yep.
cool. I will definitely use that.
Now it's time for Mini Review Corner, and as I understand it, Spencer, you bought several Mac Minis. Hint,
I
hint,
did.
Apple.
Yeah. They're not new Mac Minis. In fact, they're
Oh
almost
no.
all at least a decade old. But in our, at least my infinite quest to put out to the universe, and more specifically to Apple, that I just want like a Raspberry Pi made by Apple so I can have Apple frameworks, I keep using Mac Minis for various things. Like I'm using one for my home sound system because it connects with the serial port to my amp, and then I can, turn on the amp and change volume and stuff. Um, Dimitri found this orchardresells.com, which I would assume is somewhere in California because they got shipped to me very fast.
Las Vegas.
Um, oh, even faster. Yep, even closer. Um, they sell Mac Minis that are used in some way. They're obviously used. They're like 10 years old. So I bought a 2012 Mac Mini for, let's see, let me just spec it out here. $105, which comes with the top of the line 2.6 gigahertz quad core i7. So it's multi-threaded too. So 8 threads. That's pretty good for 10 years old. 250 gig SSD. I'm not sure why I didn't go with the 500 gig because it's $500 or $5 more. But
Yeah,
uh,
it's not a big Apple taxed
yeah,
SSD upgrade. It is $5 more.
yeah. I think I was just clicking through things fast. I didn't know how long these things would last, although they're still available. And 16 gigs of RAM for $105. That's crazy. The Mac Mini that's running that Vapor server right now is a 2012 as well, but it's like the baseline, maybe 8 gigs of RAM, and I think I did replace it with an SSD, but I paid like at least $200 for it like a couple of years ago. So this is a sweet deal. But also they have 4 parts Mac Minis, which they have 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2014 models, ranging from $15 to $25. So I bought 2 of those. I bought a 2014 and a 2012 just kind of as like a grab bag just to see what I got. So I've just, got this pile of Mac Minis here now. Uh, but it turns out they all turn on, and he kind of in the webpage tells them that they uh, need some work. Most of them are just missing storage and missing screws. So both of mine are definitely missing screws, but everything, it's just like the plates for like that top, or the screws for that top plate. So not a big deal. And they are missing storage. So I did go on Amazon and buy like some adapters. The 2014 uses an NVMe SSD, but it looks like it's a proprietary connector. So I got an adapter for $10, and I have an NVMe SSD hanging around somewhere, so I'm just going to use that. And then I needed a connector as well for the 2012 because it didn't have any like SATA connections inside. So it's just like a big hole to the bottom of the chassis. And I'm just going to put one SSD in. I don't need 2. So uh, yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm stoked. I don't know what I'm going to do with the other 2. I'm stoked about this maxed out one because like it's fairly powerful. I mean, it got like almost 3,000 points in Cinebench, which is pretty bad, but it's more than anything for fun, and so I can run Vapor and have Apple frameworks as well instead of running it on like a Raspberry Pi where I'm limited to only open source things. So, oh, and I
and it
did
and it should be faster than a Raspberry Pi at the very
yeah,
least, right?
definitely. Yeah, even the best Raspberry Pis have a 4-core processor, and I think they're not hyper-threading, and 8 gigs of RAM max, and those are also like, when there's not a shortage of them, I think it's like $65 or $75. So comparable in price, which is pretty cool, and you get a lot more for it. Um, the 2012 maxes out at Catalina, but you can do a little hackery with the same software that I used to use for my Hackintoshes open core, and I just updated it to Ventura, which is like the most recent version of Ventura, and it also was saying that it should support Sonoma as well. And it runs pretty dang good, which is surprising. Like no lag visually, all of the animations work okay. I haven't, there's, like Dimitri said, there's probably some like driver issues somewhere, but pulled up Xcode, pulled up one of my most recent SwiftUI apps, and it's all running fine. So like I'm way stoked to just be able to have the most recent versions of Xcode and Swift and all of that fun stuff running on a at least decade old Mac Mini. So big recommend. I'd probably, honestly, once I'm done with these adapters and getting storage and everything, it's almost probably going to be about $100 for these 4 parts ones to actually have them run. So I'd probably just buy um, the ones that are already complete. And personally, I don't know if Dimitri has a differing opinion here, but I'd go with the 2012 Mac Mini because it's quad core and multi-threaded, where the 2014 is just 2 cores. And I don't know if it has 4 threads, probably, but
Yeah, you mostly have Intel to thank that everything still runs
yep,
fine. Because for the past 10 years, they kind of squandered any improvements to processors at
yep,
all. So Mac OS did not change at all to take advantage of faster things. That said, after Sonoma, I don't think we're going to get a version of the OS that will work on Intel.
nope,
Like, I just don't think it's going to happen.
yeah,
So
that's
that's done. But I also don't think that we're going to have many versions of macOS running on the first generation M1s and M2s after 10 years. Like, I don't think that's
yeah,
going to be the case again
yeah,
because the M series of chips are making so far drastic increases year over year. And that will probably continue long enough for the software to uh, fully take advantage, I say in air quotes, of that new power. And by fully take advantage, do things a little more lazily in a better and more safe way, probably.
yeah, yep,
Um, that will just eat up more performance and then lead to a crummy experience running it on older hardware. So, something to keep in mind that this is probably the last version of the OS that will kind of run on these machines. But for $50, like they start at 50
they
bucks
start
for a
at 50.
fully
Yeah,
working Mac Mini, and then I want to upgrade this $5. I want to upgrade this another $5.
it's
Yeah,
so
the five
good.
dollars add up quickly to 105, but like it's
It's a
so
good deal.
insignificant, and most cases you won't really need. Like, if you want a fully functional computer to do like Final Cut Pro, this is not the machine for you.
No,
If you
yeah,
want a working computer that you can tinker with, that you can use the development stuff that you already know, or you want to run a little web server or do this or that, totally a-okay. This is something that will work excellent for that kind of thing. So
yeah. Give this
um,
to your mom. It'll run Facebook. I don't know.
yeah, it can be the online shopping machine
Hmm.
for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
So a
Uh,
plus to that.
j- yeah, just wanted to add one thing. You can subscribe on their website for emails. So I'm assuming when they come out with like the 2016 or 2018 Macs, the Mac Minis, the dark gray ones, I'm definitely gonna just hop on that. If they're this cheap, dude, it's a good way to like increase the collection. So yeah, very cool. Big recommend.
Yeah. So I have on my show notes here brand new little section that I like to call completion curiosities. Because as I am completing my timeline, I come across very interesting things. And I wanted to share some of these with everyone. They are not necessarily iOS development or Apple development related at all, but they're kind of technologically interesting and worth the read at the very least. The first one is Unraveling the JPEG, which is an old now, but excellent article that goes through how JPEG encoding works. And it gives you live editable text areas where you can go ahead and change what is being decoded live, so you can actually see what those values actually mean. So if you have at any point been curious about how JPEGs work, this is the article for that. A triple plus to this whoever wrote this thing.
Very cool. That's exciting. I didn't have time to get into it, but yeah, definitely gonna check it out.
The second one that I want to share this week, and I'll probably have 2 to 3 to share every week because I was thinking, oh, I'll save this one for next week, and then I had like 7 others, so I have
Yeah.
more. So I'm going to share the second one, and this one is building a camera in Blender. And you might be wondering, well, like, yeah, you have your camera, you position. No,
No, no, no, no.
building a camera in Blender, like a pinhole camera, and have the Blender camera just be the sensor. So you start off with an image that is black and white, is inverted, needs a whole ton of samples to
Yeah.
render anything useful, full of noise. But little by bit, the person built out, well, like, hey, we need color filters. So he puts filters, like physical geometric filters that will
Yeah.
color the light coming in, so that way you can be interpreted on the sensor. Oh, I need a lens system. Let's build a real lens system with
So
movable
cool.
lenses as you rotate the dial so you can focus. And the output of this is truly pleasant photoreal, like in a true sense,
Yeah.
photoreal images that have like the
Grain.
film grain and the response curves that you'd expect out of film. And it just looks so pleasant. So it's emulating within an emulation, like everything
Film.
that's wonderful about cameras. And it is truly wonderful.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And he went into detail and he was looking at all of these papers like, I'm trying to do this thing. Oh, but except they actually already solved this in the 1800s and I'm just going to do that. And I mean, emulating film, the emulsion layer, it's just like insane. It was one of the coolest things I've ever watched. So definitely check it out. It was very cool.
Yeah, like the amount of progression through technology that they went through, starting off with a
Hmm.
pinhole camera, which is literally the simplest camera you can make, to ultimately what a modern camera or modern film camera, I should
Right.
say, ultimately ended up as. And they went through that progression from start to finish, not really just jumping to the end, the end goal, but to learn the mistakes that necessitated new technology along the way, right, to get better
Hmm.
and better quality. At the end of the day, it still requires a very powerful computer because
Yeah.
just we don't have enough samples. Up the samples is the
Yeah.
funniest
Well,
line that gets repeated more and more. So excellent.
yeah, no, it was cool. I mean, that's like increasing the ISO or increasing the amount of light that hits the sensor. I mean, it's like a very good analog to how cameras actually work. So it was quite impressive.
As always, I want to personally thank everyone for listening in this week. Please be sure to follow us on mastodon.social at code completion to know when new episodes go live, and feel free to toot at us if there's ever a topic you'd like for us to dig into. Most importantly, as a small podcast, please be sure to share this with your friends and family who are also interested in any part of the process of app development. It's your support that enables us to continue doing this, and we hope to grow a healthy community around everything we discuss. Once again, I want to give my thanks to Spencer, who's at Spencer C. Curtis. That's SPENCERCCURTIS for joining me this week. My name once again is Dimitri. You can find me at Dimitri Buniol. That's DIMITRIBOUNIOL, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
So I have a super short commented out.
All right.
Um, so early on in the development for Codable Data Store, which is a project I started in my parental leave, did not make any progress for half of the parental leave, and then started making little progress little by little. That is finally starting to shape up. Like, it's not functional yet, so it's still in the 0.0 point version stream. But I keenly remember early on I asked Spencer, I'm like, hey, the naming, should I leave these all in a flat directory? I'm only gonna have about 10 files.
Oh yeah. How's that going
I
for you?
Yeah, I'm now like over 30 files. I definitely needed to have some sort of organization with folders. So yeah, that's the status update there. Um,
You never know until you know. Then you're like,
yeah,
oh, okay, yeah.
it's once again misappropriating the estimation costs of software development. Uh, this should be easy. I have everything in my head about like how to put this together. What could go wrong? It turns out lots could go wrong in the process, and you tend to need a lot of files for
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
I
yeah.
early on, I think it was when I was either teaching or as a student at Dev Mountain, some student asked, "Hey, when we're estimating costs for doing contract work for someone, how do you figure out how much time it'll take? And he said, give yourself like a best guess about how long it'll take and then triple it, and you'll probably be right then. So it sounds like you just need to triple the amount of files that you estimate and you'll be pretty much there.
Yeah, I would add to that, just add a constant, 2 weeks. I don't know. Add a constant to anything. It can be depending on what you're doing. But just add a constant because you're going to need a vacation sometime in the middle of that.
That's fair, yeah.
A break as you're under the stress of not finishing the thing in the time that you said it would take. If you're working on like a matter of hours, add hours. If it's on the order of days, add days.
Right.
If it's on the order of weeks, add some weeks. That's irrespective to the multiplication. And you'll thank yourself for that. Because time runs out. Like I started this in May. It is now, as we record, the end of June. My parental leave finishes like in a week or two. And it's like daunting to think about going back to work at this point, because my schedule, like, we make it seem like, oh yeah, we're recording. Finding a time to record is like impossible, and requires so much coordination. And that's just recording. Like, just regular life is impossible. Working on Codable Data Store is near impossible. I get at most like 2 to 3 hours that are cut up into 10-minute chunks with hour-long breaks in between, as I like am left to think about how to do something instead of actually trying it out and iterating that way. So I am terrified to go back to work, but it's going to happen, and I don't know. We'll see if they want to keep me for long. I wouldn't want to keep me with the amount of progress I'm doing, but so, and this will be interesting in a few months to see how well I can cope and adapt to this new way of life. But so far, the magic point in time where they say, "Oh yeah, at 3-month-old, it like gets better." We'll see. I don't think it's going to happen. So far, it's not better. I think for a lot of people, it's better because they just hand off all responsibility of raising a child to their partner, which tends to be their wife, which is like not something that I am interested in any part in doing. Like, I do want to put in enough work there so that way Lynn is not like shouldering all of this burden on her own. And I don't even want her to shoulder more than half the burden, because like we're doing this together. So that's just on me to figure out. And I don't think life is very welcoming to that. Like, at least as far as our society currently is, like, it's very much, if someone's working, then they're going back to work, and then they're not also putting in the work elsewhere. So it's going to be interesting to see how well going back to work goes. But I fully I fully jokingly expect to get canned, as I'm unable to to keep up with any amount of real work following that. So I'm not gonna like actively try to get canned.
To
be 100% clear, I do want to keep a job. Having a job is very comforting towards the very large number that is my debt of having a house and stuff like that. So I like, my motivation is to keep everything going smoothly. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be, for the first time, prioritizing my family over prioritizing work in any way. So that's going to be interesting to see how long I could keep that up. Right.
Yeah, you got this. I can't really give any advice. I don't know what you're doing, but I know you got this, man. I know you.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
For what that's worth, from a guy that has no family, you'll do good.
So I'm beta testing it out for you, so that way I can give you feedback.
Yeah, that'll be good. There've been a lot of beta testers, and I'm still not convinced. So
it's just chaos. Run while you can. Yeah, everything's fine.
Well, you said like people say it gets better after 3 months, and then Fernando chimes in. He's like, it doesn't get better, it just gets different. I'm like, oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I fully expect to need to take care of a child as they grow older. But like, I am patiently waiting for that phase where they become a coherent thought
Sure.
maker, and are not just
It's in survival mode.
a baby in survival mode that can't do anything for itself.
Yeah.
And like, I will cherish that point, and that at that point I will probably like quit of my own volition, because I would prefer to spend time with uh teaching my family than to spend my time like working for someone else. But until then, I don't have anywhere near the amount of savings that's necessary to make that
Yeah.
a possibility. So it's purely on I'm now on survival mode of like, how am I going to prioritize and make work something that uh, was previously something that had a lot more time. Like,
Mhm.
me working, like, I put out a lot, right? Now my output is going to drastically shrink, because instead of 8 to 10 hours a day to work, I now have 2 on a good day. Like, sometimes it's much worse, and it's definitely not 2 consecutive hours.
Right.
It's 2 hours subdivided. So it's definitely going to be interesting. And I look forward to reporting back after a year to see like
Yeah.
how well this has worked out for me. If this background changes, I will try to preserve it in VR form or
There we
something
go.
to make it seem that I'm not under a bridge in some capacity. But I will make it work. The podcast shall continue.
That's right. That's the most important thing. More than family. I'm just kidding. No, but I was just gonna say, like, I look forward to your updates. So yes, I think it'll be fun to hear how it goes, and I think definitely in a year you'll be in a better place for sure.
So at this point, I'd like to introduce our member special. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have any membership or anything of the sort. Though I do
Start a
look forward.
Patreon.
Yeah, I do look forward to code completion growing to the point where it could eventually have members that's like support us directly, and then we
Yeah.
don't have to work for someone else, and we're now working for you to provide you good content. That's like the dream of a content creator in some way, shape, or form, right? So
Yep.
hopefully we can get to that point. It's not going to happen overnight, but little
No.
by little, right?
Yep. So what we're saying is like and subscribe.
and hit that bell icon
That's
on your
right. Yep.
podcast app.
Yeah.
Do they have bell icons?
I don't know.
Flip that notification switch.
That's right. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.